You want to grab a pen, grab a notebook, because you will want to take notes for my conversation that I'm about to have with one of my favorite people.
Peak performance and mindset coach Hina. Welcome back!
I make it part of my self-image, and the more I rest, the more I make.
Hina is an extraordinary woman. She has a very extraordinary understanding of how the mind functions.
Christine Farrugia, thank you for being here. We're going to talk all about leadership. Welcome to Possibilities with me, Hina. I'm a peak performance mindset coach, former psychotherapist, and I help you create a life you love through ease, joy, and fun. And you know, when we think about leadership, doesn't always feel easy. Welcome, Christine.
Hi, Hina. Thanks so much for having me.
So let me just tell everybody a little bit about you.
Sure.
You have been in leadership and executive coaching for years now. You have over 2 decades of experience leading teams in a variety of industries, from retail, finance, to tech. And I was thinking about this interview and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. But then I saw a post and I was like, oh, no, this is what we're going to talk about. You posted 22 leadership thoughts, and I want to unpack them today.
Amazing.
Okay. But before we do that, I think I fell in love with your leadership style when I heard from somebody that was on your team. She shared a story of going in for an interview with you, and it blew me away. I would love if we could start so we could set the tone of who you are with that story.
Sure, I'd love to. So at the time, I was leading a team in my organization, and I needed to find a new leader to be sort of my right-hand person to be leading that team alongside me. And I've been interviewing people for a long time, dozens of people to try to find the right fit for that role. And then the woman that I ended up hiring came for an interview, very visibly almost 9 months pregnant for the interview. And we had this amazing conversation. We hit it off immediately. People actually came in from other offices to say, can you guys please keep it down? And I'm loud, so that's okay. But we clearly hit it off. And she asked me at the end of the interview, well, obviously I'm about to go on mat leave. Like, what do you think? And I said, well, if you're the right person for the job, then it doesn't matter. And so it turned out she was the right person for the job, and I hired her. And I hired her knowing that I also, at the same time, then had to hire someone to backfill her because she'd be going on mat leave for a year.
For a year, because this is in Canada, mat year was for a year. So before you said yes to her and you said, look, if you're the right person for the job, you're going to get it. Now, a lot of people will say things like that, but then when it comes to actually executing on that, that's a different story. Did you ever waver?
I didn't. I knew she was the right person for the role.
Really?
So I knew she was the right person.
Because it was going to make more work for you.
It was more work for me. And then the person who was her backfill ended up also getting pregnant and leaving. It turned into be like much more work for me in the end. But I knew she was the right person for the role. And that even if I had to wait a year to have her on my team, that was worth it. Because if I didn't hire her then, I would hire somebody else. And then I couldn't necessarily hire her when she was coming back from mat leave. And so I just wanted her on my team.
See, I find that to be absolutely incredible because leaders talk about this kind of stuff, right? We see so many podcasts, things in corporations around diversity, inclusion, not having bias when you're hiring the right person for the job. But then seeing it in action, especially when it wasn't a matter of, okay, she's pregnant, you've got a few months. It was imminent that she was going to have to leave.
Yeah, she was really only on my team for about 2 weeks before she went on mat leave.
Okay, so here's my next question for you, Christine. Did you have any pushback from your leaders about hiring her?
I didn't get any pushback from my leaders. I had a couple of people in HR sort of say, like, are you sure? Do you know who you're going to hire for the backfill? But overall, everybody was supportive and supported my decision.
So you see, this is why I love you. I think that this is the kind of thing that can take courage because we talk a lot about judgments. We may have our own judgments about this, optics, how will it look, the more work for you, but you really stayed true to who you were being and your leadership style and that you were going to hire the best person for the team.
I wanted her on my team no matter what it would take.
And who was one of your biggest influences when it came to leadership?
I've had many different influences when it came to leadership. I've worked for, 20 years. I've had lots of different bosses. There isn't really one person that I look up to and are like, this is the person that really influenced me. It's really the combination of different leaders that I've worked for, some good, some bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes I work for someone or with someone. I'm like, well, here's a list of the things that I don't want to do.
Yes.
And sometimes I learn from somebody and I say, these are the things that I want to take with me. And so it's not that I have one person, but really just being able to take little bits and pieces from working with so many different leaders to figure out what my own leadership style should be.
And we're going to get into the 22 tips, but do you think there's a difference between the way women lead versus the way men lead in your experience?
So one thing is a fun fact. In my 20-year career, I've actually never had my direct boss be a woman. I've always had male bosses,
Right.
which is just an interesting fact.
Yeah.
But I've obviously worked with several female leaders. I think there isn't a massive difference, I don't think, but I think oftentimes when you work with women, they tend to want to, get to know you a little bit better, more personally. They tend to care a little bit more about what's going on in your personal life, try to get to know you on a more personal level, which I think can make them more empathetic leaders overall.
And I think in the leadership conversations now, what we're seeing is people saying that to leaders in general to start to use that as well, to start to do that as well, to get to know your people, get to know your team, and see them as a person.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And it's interesting. When I first started doing coaching, I initially said, I'm only going to work with women. That's what I know. And then first a couple of my clients that came my way were men. And I was like, okay, let's just try this out. And what I learned was I was like, oh, a lot of the men are having the same internal struggles, internal questions that my female clients are. And I think there's maybe not as much difference in terms of how people are thinking about it today as maybe there used to be.
Okay, let's get into the 22 leadership lessons. Number 1, it is okay to say no to things that you are not aligned with.
Yes. So I think for me, this one's really important. It's really easy for all of us to get swept up with what we're supposed to want. Or you have a mentor who says, well, the way to get to this next role is to take this other role in the organization. And you might be like, well, I have zero interest in taking that opportunity. And it's okay to say, no, I don't want to do that. I think that if you're going to take a role or an opportunity that you're not aligned with, it's going to show. You're not going to be your best self. You're not going to be authentically showing up as you want to.
Right.
And that's not going to help you. And so it's okay to take a little bit of a risk and say no to something that's not going to be the right fit. That's going to help you actually maybe get to where you want to go faster.
Some people might be afraid to say no because they may think it would jeopardize their role in the organization.
Yeah.
So how would you suggest that they speak to their leader about saying no to something that the leader might say, I think you should do this?
Well, I think you need to understand why you're saying no. I
Right.
think if you just say no and just say, no, I'm not interested in doing that, of course, the other leader is going to be like, well, don't you know that I follow this path and this is how I was successful or whatever they're saying to you. But if you can explain why you don't think that's the right next step for you and what you want to do and how you see yourself getting there, oftentimes you can enroll other people in helping you in your own journey as well.
Right. Okay, number 2. Being liked is overrated. Focus on being respected.
This one, I think, again, these are all lessons I wrote to my 22-year-old self. So these are all lessons I've had to learn for myself, inspired by Taylor Swift's song 22. So in this one, for me, I've been I'm a recovering people pleaser, right? I think it's easy for all of us to grow up wanting to make other people like us and making leadership decisions through that lens, right? You want your team to like you, you want your leaders to like you want your peers to like you. But at the end of the day, being liked isn't actually the most important thing. It can lead you to make the wrong decisions or avoid hard conversations versus saying, no, I want to be respected and I want to be kind. And being kind is more important than having other people like you. You need to make decisions for yourself and not worry about that as much.
Was there a decision that you made that came out of wanting to be liked?
I mean, so many.
So many. Is there one that comes to
I'm trying to
mind
think
in
of
your career?
one that comes out. Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely been situations in my career where I've been working on a project and trying to get it done. Mm-hmm. And I probably could have got it done faster or better if I hadn't worried so much about being liked. But I was worried about being liked by all the different stakeholders that I had to work with. And so I would adjust things here and there on the margins to try to like make them happy or make them like me versus saying, well, no, this is actually what I think is best.
And when you say that, what comes up for me is it would show up in not speaking my truth, like not wanting to offend or have somebody possibly take something the wrong way.
Yes.
So I think I wouldn't speak up at times.
There's definitely been lots of meetings where I have not spoken up because I have been worried about what people would think.
Yes.
For sure.
No, that is a good one. Done is better than perfect.
So, I mean, this one is, I think all of us can really fall into this trap of saying, oh, I want this thing to be perfect. I want everything I'm doing to be perfect. And then actually it paralyzes us. So the most recent example, I was building a website for my coaching business. Yeah. And I mean, I think for 3 months I didn't do anything because I would look at it and be like, oh, I don't really like it. I'm not going to do anything. And it's got to be perfect because it's going to be out there in the world. And then I had to give myself a deadline and say, I'm giving myself 1 week to finish this. It's going to be done and it's going to get out there in the world. And I can change it. Nothing is permanent in this world, right? And so just figuring out how to gain momentum and stop getting stuck in that perfectionism trap.
And it makes me think that you're really talking about leading yourself.
100%. And your team. I mean, mostly it's about leading yourself to say that done is better than perfect. Yes. And also sometimes there's folks on your team that get stuck in that trap as well that you can then help coach them to get out of it.
Number 4, comparison is the thief of joy.
Well, so this is a quote by, I don't even know who said this quote. This is not my own quote, but this one I think is super important. It's really easy to look around and compare yourself to other people. Are they doing what you're doing? Are they farther along in their career? What are they doing? And there's like really nothing good that can come from this. I had shared the story in one of your master classes of how like I used to actually go on LinkedIn and I would scroll LinkedIn and I would find people around my age and see where they were in their career and either feel good or bad about myself. But in every role, no matter who you are, there's people who are more successful and less successful than you all the time. And it's about running your own race and figuring out what's best for you and also trusting that everything's going to happen in the right time for you.
Yeah. When you're working with a company and let's say there's a few of you putting your hat in the ring for a promotion, I mean, how would you coach somebody to not fall into that comparison trap?
Well, I think how I would coach someone is to really focus on, well, what is their unique value proposition that they're bringing to the table? It's not about how you're, better than Sarah or, Joe. It's really about who are you? What have you done? What do you bring to the table? And what's your vision for this role and this team and how you're going to evolve it?
Right. And then just focus on that.
Focus on
that's
that.
the only thing you can control.
It's the only thing you control. You can't control what other people are going to do. You can control how you're going to show up. And if you show up talking in a way that's comparing yourself, I feel like that's going to also turn other people off versus like, no, I'm here. I'm great. Those two people are also amazing. And if that's the direction you want to go in with the team, then that's great. But if this is my vision and if that's the direction you want to go in, I'm going to be the right person for the job.
I always find when people are talking about other people, like in that comparison way, you never come across in a good light.
Never.
It never does. Like that's what you remember is the person talking about other people.
100%. It's really about yourself and what do you bring to the table and just trusting that if that's not enough for this role, then that wasn't meant to be.
Wasn't meant to be. Number 5, figure out what you really want.
So often, I think we don't really know what we want. I think what we want is informed by what we think we're supposed to want, by what our friends want, by what our parents want for us or our spouse wants for us. And you really need to tap really deep to figure out what it is that you want. And this is something I often do with my clients. And, I learned from you, which is what we want is often hidden beneath our judgments about what we want. And so we have to allow ourselves to get still and quiet and really focus on what do I actually want, which sounds simple, but is actually very difficult.
It really is. And I was talking to Paul about this yesterday. We were talking about how even for him in his career, so he was a chef, 25 years and up the ranks. The last place he worked was CN Tower. And his next natural move would be to executive chef. But it's not what he wanted.
Yeah.
But everybody else would look at him and go, okay, so that's what you'll be doing, right?
100%.
And we see this in organizations.
Totally.
And he had to get still with himself and also think about, but it's not, I don't want that. I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to be doing that. And that's okay. And it's to be honest with yourself. But when you're in an organization or in a career, it's almost like the career sets the path for you.
100%.
Unless you like get in there and you
have to
interrupt
pause.
it.
You have to pause and say, well, what do I actually want? And it's interesting because I've been on the flip side of it. I remember the first time I was leading someone on my team and, you have these kind of career development conversations. And I was like, okay, so, what do you think it would take to get promoted? And she was like, oh, I don't want to be promoted. I want to do my best in the role that I have. And at the time, I was on the, kind of ambitious career track. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean?
Do you mean that's an option?
What do you mean you don't want to get promoted? Like, it was a real mindset shift for me where I was like, oh, well, not everyone wants what I want, because at the time that was really, what I wanted. But also being like, oh, it's okay just to say my goal is to do the best possible job that I can in the job that I have.
And I think this is so important, especially in the world of, I think this is really important in the world that we live in now, when you can be inundated with what success looks like, because that is success.
Totally.
Like, you're living your life on your terms, and that's what you want. And for her to be able to articulate it, to me, that's friggin' incredible.
Oh, it was incredible. It literally left me speechless.
Like imagine the confidence.
Totally.
To be able to say, I'm good. I love this. I want to do my best here. Probably it gives her, perhaps, who knows, but it may give her work-life balance. There could be other things.
100%.
There's other things that are valuable that give you increase. It makes me think of also my brother, and I was, again, Paul and I, you know what? We were driving my mom home, and there's a long drive. I was like, Paul, come with me. We have the best. It's like date night.
Yeah.
Do you ever have that with Sean? It's
the
like
best
date
conversations
night
in the
is
car.
when there's no children. And we were talking about my brother, and my brother is in a managerial role in retail, and he loves it. He loves having a team. He loves his thing. He loves going to game board night. He loves knowing like his schedule, and then he's done work. And that's really good for him. That really works for him. And to me, that's success.
Totally. And it's also important as a leader to realize what is motivating your team.
Yes.
Right? Because
yes.
I think at the time when I was a leader, I thought everybody was motivated by getting to the next level. And I had to really recalibrate and say, well, actually what's motivating this woman is not a promotion. So I need to figure out how to tap into what is motivating her, right? And it's about, building relationships. It was about, gaining new skills, but it wasn't about being promoted. And so calibrating your own leadership style for everyone on your team and what motivates them.
Absolutely. Because we sometimes just think because we like it or we want it.
Yeah, you assume everyone's like you, right? But they're not.
They're not. I've learned that.
Yeah.
They're not like me. Okay. Number 6, invest time in building and maintaining a network.
Yeah, so I think we all have networks.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes the word networking gets a bit of a dirty connotation. Like, you feels like sleazy, like you just show up and like give people your business cards. But what I really view it as is like a collection of people that know that you want to support and that want to support you, right? And that can be really close ties, you're really good friends, or that can be people that you've met once or twice, but you really, really feel like some reason that you want to help them out. And I feel like as I've been building my career, that network that I have is super important. It's somebody you can call for advice. It's somebody who you can, ask to make an introduction for you, ask for help, ask for lots of different things. But you can't just show up and view it as a transactional thing. Like, it's really a collection of people who are all there to support each other in this weird sort of network effect. And so you have to also give to that network, and you have to cultivate that network and stay in touch with people and not be like, okay, well, now I lost my job and I need to find a new one. So let me just go email all these people that I haven't spoken to in 10 years, right? That's not going to really yield the same benefits to you, either in a giving perspective or a taking perspective, as it will if you foster those relationships.
If somebody was starting out and they want to build a network, what would be some of your suggestions to them?
So some of the suggestions would be, well, the people around you are often the best place to start. I think when we're young, we often think we don't have a network, but you do. You have your classmates in your school. You have the career center at your university. You have all these different places where you can go. Then you have the alumni of the school that you went to. Mm-hmm. So really start with where those connections feel the safest, right? And often if you email an alumni of your school and ask for a coffee chat, they're more likely to say yes than if you just found somebody on LinkedIn who has an impressive job title and you reach out to them. And then as you're networking, it's completely okay and actually suggested that you then ask that person, is there anyone else in your network that you think I should connect with? And if you can do that organically, it does help to grow. The other thing, though, is after you reach out to these people, the email is really just the beginning. If you get a coffee chat with this person, you need to know what you want to get out of it. Like, what are you asking for? What do you want them to know about you? And really prepare for that informational interview or that conversation, just like you would for a job interview. The goal just isn't the same, right? The goal is to make a connection with somebody and ask for their advice and for their help.
One of the things that I learned from my mentor is when he would even have people that he would be talking to, that it may seem at face value that he would know more or be able to, would know more than that person. One of the things he would always do is also ask, is there anything, like that person would be coming to help him, but he would always ask, is there anything I can do to help you?
Totally.
So it is a reciprocal relationship.
It's a reciprocal relationship.
It has to be.
100%. You don't know who's going to be able to help you or who you're going to be able to help in the future. It's just about like being kind and trying to connect with people.
And I think if you're being referred, you've got that person's reputation because they have referred you. And you have to keep that in mind as well. And then coming from a place of being of service, even if you are asking the questions and you've requested the meeting, will go a far way.
100%.
Yeah. And then with that, I guess that leads us to number 7, be generous in helping your network and your team.
Yeah, the same idea. It's like if people in your network, like if people in my network come to me and ask for an introduction or ask for me to, put their name forward for a job, I mean, 99% of the time I will say yes, right?
Yeah.
Unless there's some reason that I wouldn't want to put my own reputation out there. But I mean, it's all about being generous, or it's just reaching out to people that maybe, there's people I know who have been looking for a job for a while. It's texting them every couple months and saying, oh, how's it going? Thinking of you, anything I can do to help, and just continuing to foster those relationships.
Oh, I love it. Number 8, don't listen to advice from people who are not where you want to be. Because they have a lot of advice to give.
There's lots of people who have a lot of advice to give, but really not all advice is worth taking, right? And it can often get in your head and mess with you a little bit and as you're heading towards your goals. And so think about when you're asking people for advice, who are you asking? Are you asking your friend who has a totally different career, is not exactly where you want to be? Or are you asking somebody who you're looking up to and who you aspire to be?
Sometimes I think we're also looking for permission.
Yes.
We want the person to say, yeah, go ahead and do this.
Yes. But that's not advice.
But
right?
that's not advice.
That's not advice.
No.
And often, I forget the exact line you use, but like as you're going towards your dreams, what is it about? People giving you a shovel?
People will give you a shovel because, they've buried their dreams.
Exactly.
And sometimes it can be triggering for people to be around people that are ambitious and going for it, because it will bring up for you where you did bury your dreams, if that's the case.
Exactly.
That has happened.
Exactly. So they might give you well-meaning advice, but really it's not actually with your best interest.
Yes. And it would be from their reference point.
100%. They're not actually trying to do it to like get in the way of what you want to do, but that's just their reference point. And so if you focus on getting advice from people who you aspire to be, you're going to get better advice that's going to help you go after your dreams.
Trust your gut, number 9.
So this goes back to kind of knowing what you want, right? So I think in business especially, it's really easy to get focused on, well, what does the data say? Or what does the analysis say? Or what should we be doing? And that definitely plays a role, don't get me wrong. But I think we all have great intuition. And it's about figuring out how to trust your gut and knowing like if this is going to be the right choice for you or for your business.
I think that's huge for leaders because they are visionaries, and they may not even have everything for everybody to see right now, but they've got to enroll people in their vision. So they've got to be connected to their vision and trust their gut is leading them into something that nobody can see. And maybe they can't see it either, except in their imagination.
Exactly. And they have to convince other people to come along and help them.
Yes. Okay. So let me see. Where did we go here? Build relationships with other leaders. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So in organizations, in sort of larger organizations, nobody can get anything done on their own.
Yeah.
Right. And you need to find the support of your peers in the organization. And that might be, if you're in a big organization, that might be other leaders that work in your organization. If you work somewhere smaller or you're an entrepreneur, it can be making relationships with peers who don't work in your same organization. But I think it's two reasons. One is it's a support network. These are people going through similar things that you're going through on a day-to-day basis. And they're the ones who are going to be able to help you and coach you. And in that vein of like, take advice from people who are where you want to be, they're the ones who are going to be able to support you. And then second is, they can help you get things done. In a large organization, like no one leader can get anything done on their own. It's really all about collaboration and stakeholder management. And so if you build relationships with people, they're more likely to want to help you and vice versa.
Well, this must have been the case for you, Christine, because you led teams of like 200 people. You've led teams of hundreds of people. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, but it also means, it doesn't mean that with my own team, I can get everything that I need to or want to get done in an organization.
Right.
Because you need to rely on other
and so
parts
did you
of the
do
organization. 100%. I mean, I've had to build relationships like one example is in an old company, I was doing this massive, massive project that touched every single organization in the company, and I was leading it. So I had to influence all these other people, right?
Oh my gosh.
I call it, there's like two ways you influence. You influence with authority, which is you're influencing your team. And then there's influencing without authority, where you have to influence other people around you, but they don't, like, you're not their boss. They don't have to listen to you. That's where building those relationships has helped me like exponentially, because if they don't like you, they don't want to support you, it's going to be more difficult. Doesn't mean they won't, but you're not going to be able to enroll them. And the way I influence is I think about the problem or the thing that I'm trying to sell them on or convince them of through their perspective. So if I was trying to convince you to support me, maybe I need your help to do the marketing of my new project.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, well, what is Hina worried about? What is she focused on? Is she trying to get promoted? Is she worried about her budget? Is her team a bit understaffed? Or, does she have another project that is much more exciting to her? And then I'll use that lens to say, okay, well, how do I take what I'm trying to talk to you about through the lens of what you're focused on?
Wow. And this is where empathy would
100%.
come into play.
Exactly.
This will get you further faster when you can get into my shoes.
Exactly.
And see it from my perspective and then know what would motivate me, how you could enroll me into your vision.
Exactly. It's not about me and my vision and my goals. It's about you and your vision and your goals, and how can my vision help support you in your goals as well.
I know I use this quote all the time by Jim Collins around the paradoxical mix of great leaders. It's ambition and humility, but the ambition is for the greater good. The ambition is for the team. It's not an ambition for one person. And that's what you're talking about. So you find out what it is that will motivate others for the greater good of the project, the team, the organization.
100%.
Number 12, if you have a seat at the table, number 11, actively invite your quieter team members to share their perspectives. I think this is important too. And again, this is all empathy and noticing that they're quieter team members.
Exactly. Not everyone feels comfortable speaking up in a large room or even in a meeting with 4 or 5 people. Not everyone speaks up. And that might be because of their background. Like there could be lots of reasons why they feel that way. But if you just say, hey, Hina, what are your thoughts on this? That's inviting them to add their perspective in a way that they may have never just spoken up. Anyways, and I found often the quietest people have the best ideas.
Best ideas, because you know why? They're listening.
And they're actually thinking.
Listening and they're thinking.
Yes.
And then they speak and it's like, oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness, where has this been all my life?
Right.
And then also you're building their confidence.
Yeah.
So that maybe you have to invite them the first 6 or 7 times, and then the 8th and 9th time, they've now realized that you're listening to their ideas, that you care about their ideas, that their ideas matter, and then they'll start to speak up on their own.
Love it. Number 12, if you have a seat at the table, believe you deserve to be there.
100%. I think, oftentimes we get invited to a big meeting, with your CEO or with other people, or you get invited to pitch for business, and you show up to that meeting and you're like, oh, like, where should I sit, in the back row, in the corner? Like, am I here to take notes? Like, what is my role? But no, you've been invited to the meeting. You have a seat at the table. Walk in the room like you deserve to be there, because you do. You've been invited to be there, but you have to believe it. And if you don't believe it, you're going to show up in a way that other people maybe don't believe that you deserve to be there either.
Well, that takes us to number 13. Confidence is an inside job.
Yes. I think I, for a long time, believed that if I just got another promotion or got another raise or other things that like magically confidence was waiting for me on the other side of some accomplishment that's external.
Oh my gosh, because then the goalpost would keep changing. Your confidence goalpost.
Oh, 100%. So then you'd get promoted and then you'd feel good for like a week, maybe two. And then you're like, oh, well, now I'm not the next level. So I'm already not good enough again. And so it's that sort of when then mentality of like, well, when this happens, then I could be happy. Then I can be confident. And for the longest time, like people would look at my resume or they'd chat and be like, oh, like you've been super successful. And in my head, I'd be like, well, I mean, not really. If you really knew, you'd really think that like not really very successful. And what I learned is I had to be confident today. It doesn't matter what I've accomplished. It doesn't matter what I want to accomplish. I need to be confident in who I am today.
Number 14, if it hasn't scared you, you haven't stretched yourself enough.
So I often have people come to me and are saying, oh, okay, well, I'm interviewing for this job, but it's this bigger team or it's this more senior title. And I think it's really too scary. And I say, great.
Wow.
If it is not scary, then it's safe. And if it's safe, then you haven't really stretched yourself. It's not an opportunity that you're going to grow. It's similar to what you say of the point of a goal is to grow, not to get. And if you're taking a new job or a new project or a new client that isn't a little bit scary, then you're not growing.
Number 15, if someone on your team, this is a big one. If someone on your team wants to leave for a new job, celebrate them.
100%. So I always say to people on my team, if someone's leaving their team and they're like, oh, like they got a new role, I say that's amazing. Because you know what? Your team is a talent, like your team develops talent and your team helps people get to where they want to go. Maybe that's a promotion in your team. Maybe that's another team in the organization. Maybe that's a totally new job in a different company. But you've helped them to develop in a way that allowed them to get that role.
And not everybody's meant to be there.
No.
For the long haul. Sometimes people can mistake your ability to release and let go as a way of not caring. But I think it's completely the opposite. Why would you want somebody to stay in something that it may not be a fit for them, that they have outgrown, or there's something better for them, for their growth? And people are meant to move.
100%.
We're meant to move.
Whenever I was coaching people on my team, I'd say, well, I want to help you get to wherever you want to get to in your career. If that's not on my team, if that's not in this organization, that's fine.
But to me, you're a good leader then.
Let's focus on you because I'm here to help develop you in your career.
Yes.
Not you in this job, in this company, in this space.
And not you for how you can serve me.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, that's good. Sometimes you need to just act as if.
Yes, it kind of goes back to the idea of confidence, right?
Yeah.
Like if you want to be promoted, act as if somebody who is at that level, right? Don't act, if you're a director and you want to be a vice president, think about how would a vice president show up in this meeting and act that way. You can promote yourself. You can show up as somebody at that next level. Or as, Dr. Benjamin Hardy says, like be your future self now and start showing up as that person today because that'll help fast track your ability to get there.
Number 17, be your word.
So this is a lesson I learned from you, which is really around if you tell someone that you're going to do something, actually do it. Sounds simple, but it's like it's much harder to do. And once you start paying attention to it, you realize not everybody actually does this every day. And I think the most important part of the lesson that you've taught me around this is it's actually important to be your word to yourself. I think it's easy for people to realize, yes, if I tell my friend I'm going to meet them for dinner, I should meet them for dinner. If I, tell my boss they'll get that report by Wednesday, that they'll get it. But if I tell myself I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow morning, or if I tell myself that like I'm going to put my phone in the drawer and be present with my kids, that I actually have to do that for myself as well.
Yeah, that is a big one. And I think that leads to confidence too. Because when you're keeping your promises to yourself, it builds up your self-esteem and your confidence.
100%.
Number 18, senior people do not necessarily know more than you.
It's true.
Some people may find this really surprising that you're saying this.
Well, I think, so look, more senior people in an organization probably have more context. And they might have a different perspective on the problem than you do. But that doesn't mean that they've thought of it from the same lens that you're thinking about it. And I think I talk to a lot of people who are in meetings and then they self-censor themselves. They don't speak up because they're like, well, there's this room full of these 3 executives. Like they must have already thought of my idea. That's what they're here for. But they haven't. They're human beings. They're people too. And they all coming at a problem with their own perspective. And so what's the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say, oh, yeah, we thought of that yesterday, but thanks for speaking up. They're not going to, shame you for it, but just realizing that everyone's people and we're all trying to do our best.
Yeah, so not to even put people up on a pedestal because
Exactly.
that could hinder you too.
Exactly.
Number 19, get curious when frustrated.
Yes. This is about the idea that in our day-to-day lives, obviously, we sometimes have negative emotions. Maybe we're frustrated by something that happened this morning with our kids, or maybe, you had a bad meeting, or different things can go wrong. But as a leader, we cast a shadow. So if I go into another meeting with someone on my team and I'm really frustrated.
Sorry, say that again. As a leader, we cast a shadow?
We cast a shadow.
What do you mean by that?
So as a leader, how you're showing up is actually casting a shadow over your entire team. So if you're showing up in a way that's super grumpy or frustrated, and I went to a meeting with my team and they were sharing an idea with me. And I was grumpy because, I don't know, my kids were being difficult in the morning and I was late for work and I stepped in a puddle and I show up in a grumpy way. Well, they're going to not think it's because my kids were upset in the morning. They're going to think it's because, well, she doesn't like my idea. She thinks I'm really stupid. That really didn't go well. And my mood is now casting a shadow over the entire team.
Oh my gosh.
And it can be hard to go from feeling frustrated and grumpy to feeling, positive and enlightened. And so really, can you get to curious? Can I show up in this meeting being curious about what people are sharing with me? And that's a way, it's maybe similar to how you would say the words of just get to neutral.
Yeah.
But I like it in the business context of just be curious about what people are saying to you. And that'll minimize the negative shadow that you have the risk of casting over your team. And if you do end up, being grumpy in that meeting, the advice I would have is just go clean it up.
Yes.
Go to the person after and say, I'm really sorry about how I was in that meeting. I wanted to let you know it had nothing to do with you. I loved your proposal. My kids this morning were grumpy. Or before the meeting even starts, and I've done this for sure, I've been like, I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm not having the best day. So I don't want you to take anything. If I'm a bit short or if I'm not showing up the way I want to, just know it's not a reflection on you. I'm doing my best. And then, you can kind of proceed as a way to not let people, I've been there for sure, where you're in a meeting with your boss and then I don't know, something, they're being really short with you or they're just not acting in their normal way. And then I've internalized it. And then I've ruminated on that for a week when probably they got in a fight with their wife before they went to work.
I think this is really important because as a leader, you don't realize your influence sometimes and your impact. And you're right. If you've got a team, first of all, every person on that team has a different experience of you because they are creating you. So they themselves are having a different experience of you. But they will go and make stories in their mind about the event. They will ruminate it, like you said. And we have a responsibility, although we're not responsible for, we talk about the difference between being responsible to and for, but you are responsible to them to share some information that could help a situation.
Exactly.
But that takes self-awareness.
It does take self-awareness.
Because you have to even be aware of that, that, I could be taken out of context today because people could be picking up on something. You'd have to even be aware of that you're in a mood.
100%. And that's why sometimes you have to clean it up after. So do your best to be aware.
Yes.
And I think the more you work on being aware, the more you'll come more naturally to be like, oh, I'm not feeling like my best self today. Even if you don't yet know why, right? Just saying I'm not my best self today and I'll figure out later what's going on. Ideally, you can be aware up front. But if you can't, the next day be like, I just wanted to apologize. I really wasn't my best self yesterday. I don't that was not a reflection of you. And I'm sorry for how I showed up. That's not how I want to show up every day.
Well, that takes us to 20, which is culture is everything. What do you mean by that?
So every organization or every team has a culture, whether or not you're intentional about what it is or not. And I think of the culture as what are the little things that we're all doing every single day? Like, how do we show up in a meeting? Do we have an agenda? Do people take notes? To how are we communicating on a day-to-day basis? And the culture of the team is more important. There's a big management quote of culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? You have to have a
Sorry, say that again.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you can have the best strategy, but if you have a terrible culture, you're never going to be actually able to execute upon that strategy.
Wow.
So you need to be intentional about what do you want to create on your team. I think a lot about, I want to empower my team members to be able to, make decisions on their own. So, okay, I have to reinforce that. If that's the culture I want to create, when they come to me with a problem, if I turn around and give them the answer, well, then I'm not fostering the culture that I want to create. I have to say, oh, that's interesting. Well, let's talk it out. What do you think? And really kind of coach them to come to the answer themselves. Or if they make a mistake, if I just immediately jump on that mistake, well, then I'm not creating a culture of trust. So I need to back them up. Even if I disagree with the decision they made, I need to support them and help them clean it up versus, getting mad at them or being like, well, why'd you make that decision? And that's the small things that you have to do every day to foster the culture that you want to create.
Wow. Number 21, tell your team what you are working on to improve. And this comes to vulnerability as a leader.
Mm-hmm. So one thing, I think as a leader, or many leaders that I know, they want to get feedback from their team. And they say, I asked my team for feedback and nobody ever gives it to me. Or they give me some platitudes, but I'm not getting the real feedback. What I've found to be the most helpful is actually tell your team what you're working on. So, okay, the one thing I'm really working on is improving my communication skills, or I'm really working on, delegating more, and telling them why you're working on it, and then saying, so if you catch me in a way that I'm not doing that, will you let me know? And you're inviting them to give you feedback, but you're also making it specific.
And you're making it safe, hopefully making it safe to give them, for them to give you feedback.
Yes.
Because, sometimes you're like, yes, tell me. But you're not really feeling the energy of that. What you'll say will be welcomed. And
yes, you have, exactly, 100%. You have to make it safe for people to give you feedback, 100%. But by being vulnerable and saying, this is what I'm working on, it often helps to create that safety.
Exactly.
Then, of course, the same as the point around being curious, like you have to also then show up in a way that is allowing, when they do share that feedback, you have to receive it. You can't show up defensively. But if you say, I'm working on my communication skills and I'm really working on, I'll just be honest, I'm often working on speaking slower in meetings. I know I'm speaking fast.
How many times have I had to pause, Christine?
I talk fast. I know I'm always working on it. And so I'll say, if I, feel like I bulldozed you in a meeting, like, please let me know after. And then sometimes someone will message you on the side after and just say, in that meeting, you actually did a really great job. Or in that meeting, or when you answered this question, next time you might want to try this. But you're inviting feedback in a way that's a bit more specific, which often makes people feel safer.
I love that. And number 22, show up as a leader from day one.
This one I think is the most important. And I think a lot of people would say, I'm not a leader. I'm not a people leader. I don't lead people on a team, or I'm a solopreneur. And I'd say every single one of us is a leader. You could be the most junior person in an organization. You can show up as a leader. You're leading yourself first and foremost, and you have ideas that'll help influence the organization. If you're a solopreneur, 100% you're leading yourself. You're leading your business, and you can be a leader amongst your peers. But again, that goes back to the mindset of realizing you are a leader. It's not about a title. It's not about how many people report to you. It's just about showing up that way.
So you're a leader, whether you're leading yourself or leading as you have teams of hundreds.
100%.
And what would you say is the difference between a manager and a leader?
So to me, a manager is about someone who is helping their team get their day-to-day job done. Okay. Right? So they're helping them, they're getting their job done. They're making sure they have what they need. But a leader is setting a vision, and a leader is inspiring other people to become their best selves.
Do you think people mix it up? Or
I think we sometimes use the words synonymously.
Right. Yeah.
When they're actually two different things and two different skill sets.
Right. When you look out in the world, who is a leader that you admire?
I think you're a leader that I admire.
Oh,
I love how you've led your team and how you've built your organization in like a very, I think, unique culture in the business world, but in a way that's aligned with the work that work that you teach. I also find I'm like obsessed with Sarah Blakely. I think from Spanx, she's the woman who founded Spanx. I think what she did in taking a business idea from the ground up is remarkable. And then there's a woman that I used to work with in one of my careers. She was the president of the organization, and she'd, risen the ranks through a corporate career and had done amazing things. And she mentored me for a while. And just the lessons I learned from her about, growing your career while also being a mom, I think are also really, really important.
And you coach leaders and executives. Who do you love to work with?
I love to work with leaders who really care about the impact that they're having. And the impact that they're having can mean the business impact that they're having. It can mean the impact that they're having on the teams. It can mean the impact that they want to have on society, but that they really care about the impact that they're having and the influence that they want to have over their team, their organization, and themselves. And oftentimes those leaders come to me because they feel stuck. They feel like, I know this is the impact that I want to have and that I'm capable of having, but it's not yet working. And then they want to work with somebody like myself or another coach to help them really get unstuck and get clearer about the impact that they want to have and get out of their own way to make sure they can do it.
I would say, I think that if you're a leader and you don't have a coach, you're doing a disservice to yourself, because leadership, there's that phrase, it's lonely at the top. That's why you want to build a network. But you also want to have somebody that is working with you that will be honest with you. That will be honest with you and be able to help you navigate and see a different perspective, especially when you're mired in the day-to-day. I think that if you want to make an impact, then you need to have a conversation with Christine. I know people are like, look, let me just tell you, this is not 2020. I'm not doing investigative journalism. I have people on here that I love, that I like, that I think you should work with. So let's just be transparent, because I think what you bring, Christine, to anybody that you work with, whether you're working with a group of leaders or individual, is that you've been there. You've been in the trenches and you've had things that haven't worked out.
100%. Yeah.
And you've had wins. You've had tremendous wins as well. And so learning from somebody that has been there collapses time, because what you're struggling with, you've already been through maybe more than once too, right? Because when you've been in something for more than 2 decades, you've got some experience. So I think every leader should have a coach.
I agree 100%.
And when you have a coach, you're like, how could I can never not have a coach.
Totally. It's just that it's an unbiased person who is there to just with your best interests in heart only.
Yes.
Right? And who's there to help challenge you and help to be a sounding board and help to hold you accountable for what you want to achieve.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you so much.
We will have all of Christine's links in the description, so you will know how to reach out to her. And if you love this episode and there's somebody that you think needs to hear this, will you please share it with them? And remember to download, to rate, subscribe, do all of the things, and I'll see you here next time.